Hi everyone, and we're in Camogli. It was raining when we arrived, and it's like umbrellas flipping, sea splashing, romantic movie scene. But this charming little fishing town on the Ligurian coast doesn't wait for perfect weather, and neither do we. So, off we go to explore Camogli, and it is a colorful slice of the Italian Riviera that most tourists still haven't discovered. Follow us, and subscribe if you have not done so yet, and make sure to also catch our last week's video, where we visited Santa Margherita. The link is up there and down below. We parked right in the town center and stepped out into wet alleyways, salty sea air, and that glorious smell of focaccia baking somewhere, not so far away. My husband figured that we should start at the beach, because that's exactly what all logical people do during a storm, and when the weather is perfect like this, right? But before I complained, he said that we are not here for logic. We're here for vibes, sea spray, and maybe a nice coffee and focaccia if the rain lets up. Have you ever visited a coastal town when it's raining? I can tell you so much, because it has got this quiet magic to it and everything literally slows down. Fewer people, moodier skies, and somehow, a little bit more soul. And this little town? Well, it's got buckets of it, and along with actual buckets of rain, for now. Would you explore a beach town in the rain or stay dry with a cappuccino? So, tell me in the comments, and maybe we can start a soggy club together. Stick around, because even on a rainy May morning, Camogli is full of surprises. We have dramatic churches by the sea, lighthouses at the end of the world, focaccia that deserves its own passport, and views that make you forget your socks are soaked. This is not just another Italian village vlog. Rather, this is us, doing Camogli, our own way. The beach idea was cute in theory, but after a few hundred meters of ankle-twisting pebbles, we decided it was time to climb back up. Once back on the main coastal walkway, Via Giuseppe Garibaldi, we kept heading towards the town's centerpiece, Basilica di Santa Maria Assunta. But first, let us take a minute to enjoy this view, be it rain or shine. It was still raining and the waves were still putting on a show. And I think that if Poseidon had a favorite Italian vacation spot, it might be Camogli. But let's pause for a second, because I haven't properly introduced Camogli yet. This adorable seaside town sits just west of the Portofino Peninsula, in the Liguria region of northern Italy. It's about 45 minutes by train from Genoa, or an hour's drive, if you're doing a road trip like us. The town's population is just over 5,000 full-time residents. And it is the kind of place where people actually say buongiorno and mean it. We are now standing near the church, and from here, we can get a better view of town, and please let us know in the comments section, what do you think of this view? And I also just scolded my husband for going too near these strong waves. In summer though, the number of people, in town, multiplies like focaccia in a hot oven. And tourists come in droves, especially on weekends. Which is why, visiting in the tail end of May, even in the rain, it still feels kind of magical. Fewer crowds, easier parking, and more time to stand and just take it all in. And you can't help but fall in love with this place. It's not just the scenery, it's how the whole town wraps around the bay like a sleepy hug. Like here for example, the buildings are all faded peach and burnt ochre, stacked like dominoes watching the sea. Keep walking with me, and I promise you that, similar to me, you will soon fall in love, all over again. Finally, we reached Basilica di Santa Maria Assunta. And even with the drizzle and wind, it stands tall and proud, like it's seen 100 storms and just shrugged them off. I mean, this Baroque beauty has been here since the 12th century, and that is almost 900 years old, but yet, she knows she is still photogenic. But the church you see today has undergone multiple renovations, especially in the 17th and 18th centuries, adding all that dramatic marble, the frescoes, and the over-the-top gold trim Italians do so well. Let us head inside for a moment and enjoy the church in all its glory. As we stepped into the basilica, the world outside just faded and the rain was forgotten. I looked up and thought, yes, this is exactly the place to be dramatic about life. The church is perched right above the sea, like it's standing guard between the town and the waves. Built way back in the 12th century, the church started simple, but over the centuries, the gold trim, the giant organ, those dreamy ceiling paintings and most of what you see now, are a few upgrades. Fishermen and their families built this church so they could pray before heading out, or thank the heavens when they made it back. In later centuries, especially the 17th and 18th, the church was expanded and lavishly decorated thanks to the growing wealth of Camogli maritime trade. Just a few steps from the church is this incredible viewpoint, and tucked right beside it is Castello della Dragonara. The name literally means the castle of the Dragon Lady, if you want to translate it with drama. The castle is tiny but fierce, built back in the 13th century, to defend the town from pirates and other, uninvited guests. And yes, the two cannons you are seeing now, well, that's pretty much the extent of its remaining military gear. Now when I heard Castello della Dragonara, I imagined towers, dungeons, maybe a drawbridge, or at least a suspicious-looking dragon statue. But when we got here, we found two little cannons, and honestly, they look more decorative than dangerous. It's not a castle in the Game of Thrones sense, but the real magic here is without a doubt the views you get. Stand between those two cannons and Camogli is in full panorama, with waves crashing below, fishing boats floating like confetti, and those postcard-perfect buildings curving around the harbor. If I ever wanted to film a soap opera, I want it set right here. Cue the wind, cue the waves, cue the emotional monologue about falling in love with a town that I did not even know this town existed before my husband brought us here today. Follow me, and I'll bring you to another little corner near the castle, and it is less well known, but offers even more amazing views. And to get there, you have to navigate those tiny alleys that seem too small to fit anything more than one person. And already you can see the views, and further in the back, that's a little lighthouse, and I'll walk you there later on in this video. The path is narrow and it seems dangerous here, especially when it's still wet from the rain, so I have to be extremely careful. Climb up these cute little steps and finally you reach it. Like I said, careful when you come here, it's really slippery after the rain. And I asked my husband to stop taking videos and watch where he walks, but this fellow never listens. I feel like chaining him to this anchor and leaving him here. The rain finally stopped, the sky had brightened and the whole town suddenly looked like it had just finished a long spa day. Everything was glistening, the wet cobblestones, the shiny rooftops, and even my hair looked suspiciously better. From the castle, we took a little detour through the narrow and winding alleys, and then we ended up at the little harbor. And tucked right by the harbor wall, we found something cute, the Courier Nodi d'Amore. It's this little setup where couples leave their love knots, ribbons, padlocks, hearts tied to the railing. You know, Camogli isn't one of those show-off towns with grand piazzas and fashion stores. It's a place of hidden corners, stone staircases, painted shutters, and the occasional cat staring at you like it owns the municipality. Then there are the boats, the pastel facades, the little cafes, the smell of sea air mixed with espresso and seaweed. And honestly, why don't we all just move here? With the rain behind us and the harbor glowing like it had just been washed for Instagram, we started making our way out to the edge of Camogli. We are walking to the Molo di Camogli and its tiny, proud lighthouse. So off we went, strolling along that long stone pier that stretches out like a finger pointing into the sea. And at the end of it, the town's adorable little lighthouse, known as Faro di Camogli. And the view from out here? Honestly, in front of us, Camogli curled around the harbor, like a pastel rainbow. You've got the faded reds, yellows, oranges of the buildings, stacked like a Mediterranean jigsaw puzzle, all hugging the cliffs like they're afraid to slide into the sea. And while we're here, soaking in the view, let's talk more about this town. This place was once called the City of 1,000 White Sailing Ships. And in the 18th and 19th centuries, Camogli was one of Italy's major maritime powers. They had a massive fleet of tall ships, most of them built and owned by locals. And it was basically the Venice of fishermen. The name Camogli supposedly comes from Casa delle Mogli, or House of Wives, because, when the men were out at sea, the women ran the village. Imagine being a 19th century fisherman and trying to sneak home late, when the whole village is run by your mom, your wife, and your sister-in-law. And it makes you wonder, what stories did these waves carry home? Now, you might be wondering, how big is Camogli? Well, not very. And the whole town covers just 9 square kilometers. That's smaller than a theme park. And you could practically walk from one end to the other in under 30 minutes. That is if you don't stop every 5 seconds for photos, or the dramatic gasps at sea views. So now we're back down by the heart of the town, Camogli Little Port, or as the locals call it, Porticciolo. You've got little wooden boats, blue, yellow and green, all gently rocking like they've got nowhere to be. Camogli Port is tucked into a natural cove, protected by the curve of the buildings and the stone pier. From the port, you can easily see the entire waterfront row of pastel houses, the church on the cliff, and even the castle ruins to your right. Today, Besides the fishing boats, you will also see lots of shops, boutiques, and even restaurants lining up the shores of this little port. Follow me, and as we walk into town, looking for a breakfast spot, and let me share a little secret with you. Camogli is home to a giant frying pan used during the fish festival in May. And it's 4 meters wide, and they use it to deep fry thousands of fish for locals and visitors. If you want to reach the other towns like Portofino, Santa Margherita, or Cinque Terre by sea, this is where you can buy the ferry tickets. However, do note that this ferry service might not operate year-round. One more thing. From Camogli, you can hike or take a ferry to San Frutuoso Abbey, a stunning medieval monastery hidden in a cove. There are no roads and no cars, but just your legs, a boat, or a lot of determination. We wanted to bring you there, however, sadly, due to the bad weather, there was no ferry service. Even from Rapallo and Portofino, the ferry service was suspended. There's a bronze statue of Christ underwater there, the Christ of the Abyss, placed in the sea to protect divers and fishermen. This staircase leads us back up into town, from the small port. And from up here, this is the Camogli you see in postcards, and in dreams. From up here, the little port looks like it was painted into the cliffs by a Renaissance artist, with a seafood obsession. We reached the top and landed straight into Via Schiaffino, Camogli main strip. It has got cars, but barely, and it's one of those streets where the buildings are hugging the road so tightly, the cars have to whisper to pass through. And walking through here, with the sound of espresso cups clinking in cafes and church bells echoing faintly in the background, it reminded me of where we were just yesterday, at Santa Margherita. If you missed that episode, go check it out afterwards, and we covered the beach, the castle, the old town, and the port area. And the link is up here, or down below. If I have to compare the two towns, Camogli may be quieter, but it's got this cozy, lived-in charm. And Santa Margherita is the stylish cousin who just came back from Milan, while Camogli is the artist aunt who lives by the sea and bakes better. Talking about baking, I was hungry now. And we did not have any breakfast this morning. We woke up early, skipped breakfast, drove here, in order to secure a parking lot. And all this walking and climbing up and down staircases have now made me properly hungry, and I was craving to try the local focaccia. Camogli is known for its focaccia, and some say it's the best in region. And therefore, I took that as a personal challenge. We walked through practically the entire town, peeking into windows, checking for golden crust, watching locals like hawks. And whoever was holding a paper bag that smelled amazing, we were following them discreetly. Along this road you'll find bakeries, fruit stalls, tiny delis, and those little neighborhood shops that look like they haven't changed since the 60s. There's a mix of residential life and low-key tourism here, and it's not flashy. You'll see locals chatting on doorsteps, shopkeepers greeting regulars by name, and the occasional tourist like us, trying to pronounce Schiaffino, without butchering it. We have reached almost the end of the road, and yet we did not find bakery that we want to try. Then, suddenly, my husband remembered that we walked past a place that sells focaccia, and for that we have to climb back down and walk back all the way towards the seafront. So here we go again. So as we do just that, what's the takeaway from this cozy little corner of Liguria? For a start, Camogli is not loud, it's not flashy, and it does not try to impress you with luxury yachts or five-star boutiques. In all honesty, it is quietly stunning, genuinely local, and it is the kind of place where boats still matter, bread still matters, and time feels a little softer. And even on a rainy morning, with wild waves and wet hair, Camogli gave us everything, from color to character, and now even focaccia. And we even managed to find a nice coffee place to enjoy a delicious morning cappuccino, right next door. Now, before we dive into our big 5-part, Cinque Terre series, with 5 full episodes coming your way, we've still got one more gem to explore. And let me tell you, the next town we will visit is called Rapallo, and it has got its own surprises. That's in our next week's video, and you don't want to miss it. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button, click the bell so you get notified, and if you've made it this far, first of all, you're amazing. And second, leave us a comment. And tell us, would you brave Camogli in the rain, or are you a sunshine-only traveler? See you next week, in Rapallo.